For having me. It's great to meet everybody. Again, thanks for having me. Really want to make this as interactive as possible. So if anyone has any questions at any time, just feel free to shout them out, interrupt me, no worries. That'll give me a nice kind of breathing break from talking for a little bit. But I did put together some slides, so I'll kind of pull that up and walk you all through my day to day and what that kind of looks like. And yeah, we'll just get right started. So again, my name is Katie Wilkinson. I am an SMB account executive here at GitLab, specifically focused on the first order side of the business. Originally, I'm from San Jose, California, but I've been living in New York City for a long time now, since 2014. So that's been pretty fun, as you can imagine, but I've been at GitLab since August 2021. I actually started as a BDR on the mid-market side of things, also focused on first order, but moved into the SMB role in August of last year. So I've been in the AE seat for a couple of months now. Outside of work, big fan of running, which is kind of wild because a lot of people hate it. And huge fan of board sports, so anything like surfing, skating, snowboarding, really love doing that when I get the chance. So what does SMB first order kind of look like in terms of day-to-day and where our focus is? Essentially, our main focus is we're guiding prospects through their first purchase here at GitLab. In SMB specifically, it's a relatively quick sales cycle, as you can imagine. So most of the business that we kind of deal with is actually created and closed in month. So some of the meetings, for example, that I'm having this week will probably be opportunities that close in like 2 weeks or 3 weeks before the end of May. We are essentially entirely reliant on leads that come from SDRs. So what will happen is the SDRs will get an MQL, so things like trial leads, contact requests, existing free users that are looking to upgrade. Those are kind of the main 3 buckets. Those will then get routed to SDR. SDR will qualify those out, and then they'll set up our first kind of initial meeting with them, and then it'll be me, the SDR, and the prospect. And we'll kind of talk through the process there and work through the sales cycle together. In terms of who we're talking to and how mature they are in regards to DevOps and in regards to GitLab knowledge as a whole, we're dealing with people that are at completely kind of polar opposite ends of the spectrum. So a lot of our customers are, building out their SDLC for the first time. They have no tooling and they're coming to us looking for help and guidance as to what to kind of put in place and where to spend most of their time. So maybe they're new to CI/CD, again, building out their initial tool set. But on the flip side of things, sometimes we'll have prospects come to us who have already very kind of mature and extensive tool sets in place. And maybe they come to us looking for specific, like strict compliance and security needs, ready to evaluate Ultimate, ready to kind of hit the ground running there. And everything in between. So every call is really unique. Every use case that we deal with in SMB is super unique. So that makes the job fun, makes it kind of tricky as well. Once they go through the first purchase process, we will then hand them off to a first year expand rep who's kind of that new customer's point of contact and guiding light essentially throughout their first year here at GitLab. So in terms of what our kind of most used and favorite resources are, specifically for the SMB first order gang, there's 4 of us in total, and I kind of crowdsourced what we're using as a team and what our prospects are asking from us in most of our calls, and it was pretty similar. So about 85 to 90% of our opportunities are premium evaluations. With that being said, one of the main kind of resources that came up time and time again is our Why Premium page, which I actually really like for a couple of different reasons here. One being that it has kind of some key features bucketed into specific, almost like selling points, right? So like faster code reviews, release controls, enterprise agile planning. Those are three really key features that people are looking, and kind of captures people's attention in regards to premium. But what's even better is how underneath each of those buckets, we list out kind of what comes there, and a hyperlink to kind of short little demo videos so people are able to easily digest like what is what, and have one unified resource for essentially everything that they're looking for in regards to premium. And this is kind of in contrast to the pricing page. All of us will bring this page up in our initial sales calls and kind of walk through the basics of what comes with what tier to the prospect. But having something like the Y Premium page is a lot kind of easier for the prospect to digest on their own. And it's just a lot more comprehensive than just taking a look at, like, for example, what comes here. So that's definitely one of the big ones that I share a lot and that a lot of my colleagues share as well. Number two, this one is also super, super relevant to us specifically, the Get Started for Small Business page. As I said, a lot of our prospects come to us looking for help with, setting up their initial tool stack. They really need guidance on best practices and come to us looking for just tips and tricks as to how to kind of roll out GitLab and get things up and running. So having a page like this where it literally breaks down every single kind of step of the way, almost like a hand-holding approach, essentially, has been super, super helpful. And this is something that I actually recently became aware of, but has been an absolute game changer in kind of including that in some follow-ups after. So those are definitely two kind of key resources, pages that we share time and time again with prospects, kind of regardless of where they are at in the eval process. What could be improved? Number one, as I mentioned earlier, we talked to a lot of people who come in via SDR who maybe kicked off a new trial. And as you all probably know, GitLab has so many features and functionalities that 30 days isn't a lot of time to test everything out. And oftentimes what happens is, especially with an ultimate eval, a prospect will come in, take a trial out themselves, and then quickly they will bite off a lot more than they can chew. And then we get kind of stuck in this process of they still want to test XYZ, but they don't have enough time. So we need to extend the trial out a little bit more. And we just get stuck in kind of like a catch-up process. So this page has been great to kind of share guidance and guidelines onto how to look at a trial, but there's a couple of key things that are missing. One, it's only available for SaaS. To my knowledge, at least, I don't think we have any sort of best practices or guidelines on a self-managed trial and how to best roll that out. And obviously, most of our prospects are evaluating SaaS, but we also still deal with a lot of prospects that are evaluating self-managed. So it would be great to have something like this for those individuals, but also having some more kind of like visual guidelines. It's really just a handbook page that is helpful for some people, but at the same time, a lot of the times we're talking to CEOs who might not have the most kind of technical know-how. They might not be familiar with GitLab. So having a little bit more of like a visual guidance, hand-holding type approach again, I think would be very beneficial. But it's a great starting point, and I love sharing this with people who have just kicked off a trial on their own. Next is free to paid. As you all can imagine, with the user limits being rolled out, a lot of our conversations, especially in SMB, have been existing free customers that are looking to upgrade to premium or ultimate. either because they will be affected by the usage limits or because they want some features or functionalities that come with a paid tier that they might not be getting today with free. And we run into a lot of unique kind of logistical problems with these particular leads in terms of evaluating and upgrading. So questions that come up time and time again that we don't really have great resources or guidance to kind of help walk prospects through is oftentimes people come to us asking, you know, how can we consolidate multiple top level namespaces or groups into one place? I have all these groups existing like across different namespaces, but I want to upgrade my namespace, but bring every group back into that namespace. How do I do that? How do I take out a trial on my existing free namespace so I could test drive premium or ultimate? And we have enough know-how to kind of walk someone through this, either like via email or on a call. But having some sort of like get started guide or resources that we could share with existing free users, kind of walking them through how to best evaluate a paid tier would be amazing. Because just the volume of free users that we have is insane. I think I heard that there was, for SMB alone, there was like over 100,000 accounts that were going to be affected by the free to paid changes. And that's just people who are going to be affected by like the 5 user limit changes. There's still so many more people who aren't affected by the usage limit, but are like currently using free and still want to evaluate a potential upgrade. So having some sort of, get started guide or guidelines outline as to how to best go about that evaluation, and some kind of like how to overcome some key obstacles, examples here that might come up, would be super, super helpful. And then another kind of one-off, not really one-off, but another situation that comes up a lot in SMB particularly is guest users. And typically this comes up because we speak with a lot of like consultancy type companies who might have a need for giving their customers access to their GitLab instance, i.e. having like 50 or 100 guest users potentially. And typically we'll share, I'm sure you guys have all seen the permissions and roles doc, which is great. Super, super thorough background of exactly what a guest user can and cannot do. But oftentimes people come to us asking like, can you walk me through like what the purpose essentially of a guest user is? Like, how are you seeing people use a guest user? So having some sort of like story or success criteria as to like, this is how we see people successfully using guest users, or these are common scenarios and situations in which customers are actively leveraging our guest users within GitLab would be super helpful to share with these prospects so that they could kind of, again, like really like see it laid out in front of them and see if it would make sense for them. Next is the post-purchase process. This is probably funny enough where first order runs into the most difficulty and problems in return or in regards to lack of resources. So what happens when someone buys? Essentially, customers have many different issues, but the first one is they always have a really, really hard time linking their new subscription to their namespace. And they have a hard time maybe adding payment information. Sometimes they'll try to log a support ticket, but they log it under the wrong kind of like reason, then it gets automatically rejected. And then they come to us asking like, what the heck? I thought I had support. What's going on? This is crazy. So it's not exactly a smooth, great experience, but in terms of a handoff, I think that's where a lot of the friction kind of starts. So as I mentioned before, we as first order guide them through the first purchase. And then once they purchase, we'll hand them off to the first year expand reps. And the expand reps will be their point of contact for basically everything throughout their first year at GitLab. The handoff is essentially an email template that was created for us to kind of just like copy and paste and send to new customers. So every time I close a deal, I'll just go into this Google Doc, copy and paste this, and essentially send it to my new customer. It links to things like this. This is just a screen grab of essentially a Google Doc that kind of walks them through how to link their subscription, how to add payment information, how to set up the customer portal. And there's also a YouTube video, which is linked as well, which is helpful. But having, again, some sort of like quick get started guide with really like heavy on the visuals of like exactly how they need to walk through this process that's outlined right here in the Google Doc would be extremely helpful, because yeah, even though we are sharing these resources with them, more often than not, our customers run into issues and it's a rather frustrating experience for them. And sometimes like they're not able to really explain what their problem is to us, and then we're not able to really figure out what's going on, and then it just becomes not really a fun time for a new customer. So again, having something where a page or something like that we could point new customers to that will literally hold their hands through the entire process and make sure that they're able to link their new subscription and hit the ground running would be super, super helpful, because I think that's really where we're missing a lot right now. And I think that also is making the job a lot more difficult for our first year expand team, because then they're having to right off the bat deal with the customer who might not be very happy with GitLab. And I've heard stories of a first year expand rep like reaching out to their customers only to find maybe this person bought premium, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago, but never actually linked the subscription to their namespace. So they've still just been using free. And it's just not really a great experience for them, as I mentioned. So having something that we could point them to really just hold their hands and walk them through this process would be amazing. So again, onboarding guide for SaaS and self-managed, walking them through how to link their namespace, apply a license key, add payment info, who has access to the customer portal, how can they file their initial support ticket without it getting automatically closed, how could they add support contacts, for example, things of that nature, just all in one kind of unified spot would be amazing. But that is essentially my day today and where my kind of focus is. I hope that was helpful. I think we have some questions in the doc, but that was basically it. So I guess we could work through some questions. The first one, Lauren, are you on the call?
Yeah, I'm right here. I'll vocalize. Yeah, I was wondering, how do you target an existing free customer as an opportunity?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I'd say one of the main ways that we do that is we're looking at people who are purchasing CI minutes, but don't have an active premium sub. So to us, that means they're heavily using GitLab free. If they're running out of CI minutes, they're leveraging CI, which is always a good sign. And then we'll kind of just reach out to those people and be like, hey, have you ever thought about evaluating premium? And honestly, more often than not, a lot of them don't even know that we offer premium. So yeah.
Super interesting. Thank you.
Of course. Next, I think we have Jessica.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. Super interesting. I was curious because I was looking at that SaaS trial guideline page and it's on the handbook. And my first thought was like, should this be in docs? And I'm curious if our SMB customers are expecting this information in the handbook or in docs or on our marketing site or in the product or some combination of the above.
Yeah. So I was only recently made aware of that SaaS trial guidelines page like maybe like a month ago. So I didn't even know it existed. But I think most of them are leveraging, at least from my knowledge, a lot of the SMB specific are leveraging docs pretty heavy. So I would expect something like that to maybe live in docs. But then also maybe potentially on our marketing site as well for some of the less technical savvy folks. But yeah, I was a little bit surprised to see that existing as a handbook page. I think we have next Alvis.
Yes. I looked at you use some videos as tutorials for the new users, and I was doubting if you have ever tried to use some tools like ScreenHub. Like essentially, it's like a record screen for steps to create like tutorials.
No, so I have not, but that's actually a really good idea. Leveraging something like that so that I could, yeah, we could just essentially pre-record some of this stuff to walk our new customers through the processes, but I haven't yet. That's a really good idea.
Hey, Katie, got a question for any time I can get into your brain. I got to observe Katie in a bunch of shadows, and she's incredible. So I'm on the other side now, and I just wanted to, I'm just sensing like the theme here is like make it easier to understand how to become a customer and how to be a customer. So a philosophy we've been installing in our team is like, don't be afraid to replace ourselves. Because if we continue to do that, you know, either by automating things, reducing the effort, reducing how critical we are in things, then that creates space for us to work on even bigger things. So question for you is like, if you could just wave a magic wand, make one thing go away, it's a two-part question. Like, what would that one thing be that gets solved? And then it would create time for you to do something that's more valuable. What is that more valuable thing?
That's a great question. My gut instinct says this linking process. So when someone buys, if that could automatically, like, either when we, I don't know, send the quote out or submit the opportunity for approval as closed won, if we could automatically link their subscription to their namespace, that would save tons of time just going back and forth, figuring out what's going on and explaining how to file a support ticket. Which then I could use doing some outbound stuff. So again, like reaching out to people who may be purchasing CI minutes, setting up new meetings, and just building pipeline essentially. Because we get roped into a lot of like support type conversations via email after someone purchases that end up taking a lot of time. And like, we're probably not the best people to be giving someone like technical guidance on what they need to do. So if we could automate that process, that would be game changer for all of us, I think.
That makes a ton of sense. I feel for the first year expand team when we like with what you're describing, like, here, let me hand you over an angry person that's already like pulled money out of their wallet and agreed.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah, it's really not a great experience. And
no.
It's tough. So if we can make that better for everyone involved, I think that would make a lot of people really happy.
Awesome. Thanks for the insight.
Of course. I think that was all that was in the doc, but does anyone else have any more questions?
What's the strangest thing someone's asked you for in one of your early meetings?
Oh gosh. That is a good question. In terms of like, I guess like in terms of
deals or like whatever deals, just there was some interesting conversations I observed. The one of the mother, son, and daughter kind of team, kind of presenting themselves as a big company, and then like 10 minutes in is like, wait, she looks a lot like him, and well, this is a family. Whoa, okay.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure, I think we might be thinking of the same one. They actually, they were a family, a group of three, and they were building this really cool kind of like I believe it was like a search site for people with like developmental disabilities. So super cool concept. And they ended up just sticking with GitLab free, but at least they're using GitLab. But yeah, it was really cool. And essentially it was led by the mother. The son was the developer and CTO, and I think the daughter was the UX designer. And we're trying to work on pricing. They really wanted Ultimate, but it's too expensive for them. The mom kept offering me like, I'll give you like case studies, or like I'll do like anything. But we just couldn't come figure it out. But that was definitely a fun one. I feel like we deal with quite a bit of like family businesses a lot in SMB, which is always fun.
Yeah, that's fun. It was fun to kind of piece it together in real time. Like, felt like you were selling, but we were also solving mysteries.
Exactly.
Well, we only have a couple minutes left, but thank you so much, Katie. Like, this was very interesting. It was nice to see all like some of the work that we've done with the Y Premium page and the pricing page, that it's like helpful and like in use, which is amazing. And like happy to connect with you after on some of the asks that I think there's some really great ideas in there. So like the getting started, like getting all that linked up, like I think that's a good resource. And if we can get content for that, that's a super easy win that we could work on as well. But yeah, in general, thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. It was great to meet you all. And yeah, thanks again for having me.